podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Scouser Tommies. We're back. We've been away for a while, haven't we? It's been summer, hasn't it? It's the summer. There's nothing going on in the world. It's all tennis and cricket and some other tournament that we aren't madly interested in, or some of us aren't. So it's not deliberate. The break wasn't deliberate, but there's not been enough happening to kind of make us think, let's get on the air, let's do a podcast again. But we're here now. And as we start talking before the show, we realise there's going to be plenty to talk about because it's Liverpool. And of course, if we'd had the time to do shows between now and the last time we were on, I'm sure we'd have found plenty to talk about. We will get as much as we can done in this hour. I'm Jim Boardman and I'm with Jay Reid. And Jay, I mean, 6 weeks, lots has gone on. I mean, I'm sure you went and watched Taylor Swift at Anfield and Pink, and then glued yourself to every England game in the Euros. It's been hectic, hasn't it?
Buenos tardes, Jim. That's as far as my Spanish goes. But yeah,
Gracias.
You know, we won't delve too much into the Spanish elements of this, although we would really love to. It's been, as we sort of figured out there, it's probably been about 6 weeks since we last spoke and recorded anything. One, it's gone really quick, but two, it also feels like a bit of a lifetime. You know, since we were talking about relevant football. But yeah, here we are back on, you know, proper football terms. Pre-season has not necessarily begun, as we were saying before, and there's a distinct lack of friendlies this year. Only the four, which we've highlighted, 3 in America, and obviously the Anfield test events in Sevilla. But we do normally enjoy, as local fans, you know, a visit to some of the local smaller teams. You know, the likes of the Wigans, the Tranmeres, the Prestons, the Chester Cities of the world, or Chester City, I'm sorry, where you can get a glimpse of a couple of the senior squad members and some of the younger lads coming through the system, and, you know, seeing, you know, what we might be able to, you know, glance an eye over where we might see them in domestic cup competitions. But this year, all change around Anfield, you know, at the very top and, you know, all the way through the back room. It seems like there's been wholesale changes, and maybe the club are just trying to be a bit more, you know, cautious in terms of how they want to, you know, publicly display the new Arne Slot era, and allow himself and, you know, his team, as he said himself, more time on the training field is vital, you know, to implement his sort of methods and his thinking and how he wants the team to set up. And, you know, obviously we are also in silly season transfers, and he's got to give a good look at the players he's got at his disposal and decide, you know, who he wants to feature and who he might not actually hold too much of a future for. You know, and given the fact there's been international tournaments on, there's a slow sort of drip feeding effect. Players coming back, as we've seen. We record today on a Tuesday, the likes of Andy Robertson, Dominic Szoboszlai, and our new backup keeper, as it seems, Vitor Slav-Jaros. I hope you haven't butchered the lad's name, are all back because they exited the Euros in the group stage, and then I think it'll be a sort of, again, a slow process of those lads who have gone out at various stages through the knockouts and sort of come back into the fold. So, you know, I think probably next will be Canate and maybe Alisson, because Brazil and France exited, you know, in the knockout rounds, and then probably obviously last to come back will be the English lads who featured so prominently for Mr. Gareth Southgate, and, you know, and the Dutch contingent, and then the South American lads, and, you know, whether Darwin Nunez will make it back to England or not, we can discuss later on. His actions across the summer haven't exactly been quiet, is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, he's not. He could do a lot of podcasts. He could definitely do a lot of podcasts of his own.
Plenty of content.
Yeah, no worries for him whatsoever. If he's allowed, if he was allowed the freedom to do that. It's been good to have a break. I'll be honest. I mean, it was an intense season last season, and even though we're only fans and we're only kind of, the hardest thing we do is actually travel to a game or talk about a game or whatever. It's still quite draining, and it's going to be interesting to see what state the players are in when they do come back from pre-season, because we've had this 6-week kind of break and nothing much has happened. But those lads, Darwin and the rest, they've had 5 minutes, if you like, with family, if that. Then he's straight off with the countries, and obviously they do get a holiday when they've done a couple of weeks off, but it's not a massive amount of time to charge your batteries. But on the other hand, it saves them getting that sort of summer belly, doesn't it? Where you kind of used to see with players where they first come back after pre-season and they'd put a pound or two on. They haven't got time to put a pound or two on, probably. So we'll see. And obviously, new era. I think you're right as well. Not having these early pre-season games, it's a bit weird. Because like you say, we do get a sort of feel for what kind of players we've got, and maybe even some forgotten players come back on the scene and you think, oh, maybe he's not that bad after all. But yeah, a couple of weeks from now, you'd hope by then the team's quite well drilled, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of maybe playing the likes of Chester or Wrexham or someone behind closed doors. The only other reason I can think of we've not got a friendly against Tranmere is maybe did Tranmere fall out with us because we moved all the women's fixtures and the academy fixtures and that away from their ground. I think they're all being played at St Helens ground from now on, aren't they? The rugby ground.
Yes, of course. Yes. So there could be a little, case and thing through the toys out the pram into the Mersey.
Yeah, and also let's face it, we don't have to do we aren't obliged to kind of do a pre-season game as part of the deal, because I don't fancy. I'll be honest, I don't fancy any of our lads against that rugby lot if they had a match against the rugby team, but never mind. The Euros first, and we just spoke before we came on. I hardly watched it as well. I don't know what it is. I just didn't feel sort of inspired to go and watch it. I wasn't really excited about it at all, and I don't know what causes that, because normally international football can be exciting. It's not Liverpool. Maybe it was. I needed a break. I wasn't madly excited, and to be honest, when I did see things, I was like, well, if you've got one of those situations where someone that comes into your house for the first time, maybe a new in-law or something like that, and you say, oh yeah, this is the sport we're mad on, this is the thing we keep watching, here's a game, not my club, but here's a game, you can see how exciting it is. They'd not trust you ever again. Some of those games I've seen, especially the England games, I didn't actually see the game that Trent played in, which by all accounts didn't do too well. But I just found it mad how, again, there's the great with England and the UK and doing the national anthem and all of that. There's so many sort of layers to that whole thing. But my gripe with England, if you just take it on its own, is I'm sick of, over the years, we've got great players who are mistreated by England, whether it's hardly used in the wrong position, made to look stupid, booed by their own fans. This sort of whole thing about the way Liverpool's players are treated by England has done my head in for years, and nothing's changed. I didn't expect to see Joe Gomez get a game, to be honest. He's not kind of our first choice. He played so many games last season because we had injuries, let's face it. Would have been nice to see him get a run out, but never mind. But Trent, definitely, in my view, and I'm not biased, obviously, the best full-back in the world. If you're not going to play him at full-back, you could play him on the right of midfield. Asking him to play centre mid when it's not his main position is a big ask in a finals. If you sort of, unless you've been using him a load in pre-season, friendly games and warm-up games, then I don't get the point. And from what I can gather, it was like Trent was sort of borderline scapegoat. But from the games I did see, why is Harry Kane still getting a game? And it was interesting. I did sort of catch the end because I thought England were going out. Quickly turned over. And the commentator, the sort of Lee Dixon, it probably was, they're all sort of talking like, Southgate needs to go, this is dire, this is terrible, why is he not making any changes? It was laughable how they were all imploding, yet 2 weeks later, they were talking about giving him a knighthood. It's just England, someone needs to write a comedy about it. I know they wouldn't have much work to do, would they?
No, this is one of the main reasons I'm not on board with supporting England is the fickleness and, you know, the contradictory views of, you know, how you approach being an England fan to how you approach being, you know, your regular football fan, and whatever your opinions are on that, everybody's entitled to their own. But, you know, as we are as Liverpool fans, we will support our players and whoever they play for. You know, we always keep a keen eye out for, and in the main, you hope that those players do well. So, you know, without delving too much off the England route, as you know, Cody Gakpo has had a good Euros,
joint top
for his national team. Yeah, and you think, well, we're happy for the lad. You know, like he might not wholeheartedly be invested in the Dutch winning, although had they won the semi-final, we would have been. But you know, he's had a good tournament. He's given himself, you know, a platform now to hopefully build on it, and he's proven to some Liverpool fans that, you know, that there is more aspects to his game. You know, and that's what we're happy to see. You know, we're not overly saying, yes, we're all Dutch fans, but, you know, our players doing well is a good thing to see. Our players not being scapegoated, you know, and it seemed like the beginning of the tournament, it was all set up for Trent to be the scapegoat, because every Liverpool fan knows, is he a midfielder? Maybe is the answer. He's not a yes, and he's not probably a no, but he's got some qualities undoubtedly that can say he'll be an asset in midfield, and we've seen him obviously move into them areas.
And who's with him in midfield? That's always a big thing we spoke about. Every time we've mentioned about him in the midfield, it's been about who else has been there, isn't it?
Of course. And we know he may well be, you know, the second coming of, you know, a Steven Gerrard, Kevin De Bruyne hybrid, some sort of player, because he's got such quality on the ball. But we know there's deficiencies in his game. We're not stupid. And there was a reason why Jurgen Klopp, who sees him day in, day out as a far superior manager to Gareth Southgate, did not say at any point last season, Trent Alexander-Arnold, you are starting in the midfield. You've got license to go in there, of course, but you are not, you know, on the team sheet at number 8. And I think that is the ringing endorsement of what should have been going around. However, you know, Southgate being the limited football tactician that he is, thought it would be okay to put him there because there was some sort of media clamour for it. But then when it didn't work, you know, the media circus quickly flipped, and the fickleness, you know, was there. And then, you know, he was kiboshed from the team and, you know, banished to the bench because Conor Gallagher was a better player somehow. But then Conor Gallagher was also binned off, you know, for Kobbie Mainoo, who, you know, was effective by all accounts in certain games. But, you know, the media then jumped on the circus of Trent Alexander-Arnold won the penalty shootout. Well, you know, he scored what was the vital one in the end, but, you know, there still could have been more to go afterwards. But all of a sudden, I did read for a few days after that how Trent should be then back in the team. Yeah. And you think, well, this is what I can't buy into. Like, you slate him 1 minute, and let's be honest here, 90% of the country don't like Trent Alexander-Arnold because of who he plays for, and
where he's from.
For the next season ahead, he will receive abuse wherever he goes around the country in away grounds, and, you know, probably at Anfield because of where he comes from, who he plays for, and, you know, amongst other things, which we probably don't want to get ourselves into. But it's that fickle nature of then people wanting you to stand arm in arm and go, actually, you know, we love Trent Alexander-Arnold. Why? Because he scored a penalty for England. No, be strong enough to have an opinion and back it and stand by it. I don't like certain players who play for other clubs because of either the club association or the type of people and players that they are. I'm then not going to stand there and cheer them on because that's being a huge hypocrite, and that's not what I believe. So, you know, there's a hell of a lot more to why Liverpool fans and you know, people say it's Scousers, but it tends to be Liverpool fans because a lot of my Everton supporting friends did want England to win.
They're desperate.
I've got an issue with England.
They want some kind of access to silverware, don't they? I mean, they're into darts a lot. I mean, of them, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very weird breed of fan, but yeah, like it was foolish, you know, but it was also to be very expected that, you know, you've got one of the best players with a football at his feet in Trent Alexander-Arnold, and you're not using him in the positions he's effective. You've got arguably one of the top 2 or 3 players in the world past season, Jude Bellingham, and I think he was playing left wing in the final when the game starts, and you think, I've never known Jude Bellingham play left wing in my life. Phil Foden's coming for a hell of a lot of abuse, but I don't think he was ever deployed in a setup and a system in a position where, Man City had the hell of a lot out of Phil Foden, and we won't even delve into, the fella up top wearing number 9 in the captain's armband, because, he clearly wasn't right. But then in the semi-final, a fella comes off the bench in Ollie Watkins and scores and creates a bit of havoc, and you think, well, have you got the balls? Have you got the balls to drop him? Yeah. He hasn't. And then, he carried Luke Shaw, and I'm sure, the weight of carrying that fella all the way through a tournament until he could play in the final, was not a wise decision at all. And he got lucky in the fact that he was able to feature in the semi-final and the final. But, that's a foolish decision and a massive kick in the face for, the likes of Joe Gomez, who has performed exceptionally at times for Liverpool at the left-back position and was never even considered. A Kieran Trippier went out there who was diabolical in the games I see. We give Ponza, I think, a run out there. We give Kyle Walker a go out there, who we can't even begin to discuss. If Trent Alexander-Arnold had put in the performances Kyle Walker had put in that final and the semi-final, that he would have been, public enemy number 1. But, so be it, he doesn't play for Liverpool and he's not from Liverpool, so that won't matter. But
it's like it's as if he's like a son to Gareth, Southgate. You can't see anything wrong with him.
And there's other lads in that team. You think of the likes of Eze and Janet Bowen, who, had really good seasons for the club. That Adam Wharton, who, got the move to Palace and then was put into the squad because, he was rewarded for his performances, who didn't see game time. And then, there's Anthony Gordon, who may or may not be in a red shirt next season. We will remain to be seen, but he's an effective footballer, and I don't think he got on the pitch at all. I don't know, maybe he did, but I don't remember seeing Anthony Gordon any of the times I'd seen England games.
No, I kind of forgot he was there, and he was like, he got a mention. He was having. Someone saw him. Someone I was watching the game against, and they said, what's happening to Anthony Gordon? Because there was talk about him coming to us, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, the squad of 26 for England might as well have been the squad of 14. Because that is all Gareth was ever going to use. And again...
And yeah, he changed his formation, but doesn't change the personnel. It's that way of thinking all the time, isn't it?
Yeah. And if that was your club manager, you'd be up in arms in the stands. So, like, if you've got quality, talented footballers not getting a look in, questions will be asked. Fans are entitled to their opinion. If they pay the hard-earned cash to go and watch week in, week out, then, questions should be asked and demands should be made. And, seeing talented footballers sat there wasted, it wouldn't be allowed. Like, Liverpool fans wouldn't make their voice known one way or the other. And yeah, it just seems like, oh no, well, let's all band together and pretend it's coming home and ignore the fact that, like, you've wasted another generation of footballers and another tournament. So, yeah, long may international football fade into the background. And I do hope going forward that some lads coming through the system might actually consider their allegiances, because, some of them are eligible to play for other countries. And
yeah, I think Kwanzaa
when they see how it's treated. Jones, I think, is eligible for Nigeria through her grandparents, and Kwanzaa, I think, is possibly Ghanaian. And I think Jaden Dan's, his dad, represents Grenada. There's lads in our setup who might look at the England thing and think, you know what, I could actually go and have an international career elsewhere where I'm probably more appreciated, and I'll actually be sort of rewarded, as a player for my talent, rather than, just because I'm English and I'm half decent, that I might get a couple of caps, which then ties me to a national team that I'll not actually appreciate my talents.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back years. I mean, that going home song, I mean, the England fans probably forget it was written by Scouser, but, we'll let them gloss over that. and he was better when he sang it and with the lads, with Heel and Skinner. The renditions I've heard of people, when you go around and there's people, I don't know, like if you're on holiday, you might hear it and stuff like that. The drunken renditions of it, it's they don't even sound like they mean it anymore, like they believe it. And I think football left home because of that noise. But anyway, maybe he'll come home for them one day. But yeah, it's just so frustrating. That's the main thing. And as you say, I've got a lot of reasons to not like England. That's a big part of it. And in honest, I was quite cheering on the Lionesses when they were playing. The Olympics are coming up. I'm sure I'll be a bit more patriotic about that at times, although that's more Great Britain rather than England and things. But, I'm not unpatriotic completely, but England just may basically squeeze out any last drops of patriotism I've got. And my daughter, on the day of the final, she disappeared for a bit, and then she reappeared, and she'd made some little Spanish flags and a couple of Trent Alexander-Arnold flags, and one with the tennis guy on, the guy who won the tennis on Sunday.
Alcaraz.
Yes, I couldn't think of his name then. Because, same sort of philosophy as me about England. It's just, there wouldn't have been a happier person in the country if England had won, because Trent came on and scored one of his free kicks. You know what I mean? I'd have been as happy as anyone for him for that. Although actually I still would have been pissed off when I realised we'd have to listen to him going on and on about how great they are forever and ever and ever. They got, from what I could see, the bits I did see and the highlights I saw, they got an easy group, relatively speaking, and they managed to get through. That wasn't particularly a problem, although they made it seem a bit of one. When, the group stage, they got a fairly easy game and only just scraped through. Holland, as big and good as they are, they actually only finished third in their own group, so they weren't exactly flying. Spain was the first team they really saw that was a difficult one, and I don't think Spain were playing to the best in that game. Maybe they were just holding something back, but I think, it was one of those Spanish wins. The Spanish teams, like, you've seen Liverpool play this, where they've won a game 2-1, and you think they could have hammered them, but they've got away with it. They've got it 2-1. They could have hammered them. That should have been a bigger win than that. But anyway, it doesn't matter. You've got the 3 points, and it felt to me a bit like that with the final with Spain. But the other thing that always comes up, well, we'll come to that in a minute, actually. I was going to talk about transfers, but of course it wasn't just the Euros, there was the Copa America. And I was about to say, with transfers, it's always, you get these tournaments and there's some standout player that everybody wants, and then they've heard a rumour of someone that, he was in a chippy the other week in, wherever in Watson or whatever, you get all this shit. So I'm sure there'll be some of that coming up soon, but I've not really heard much. Not really been looking for it, but Copa America, from what I can gather, Darwin came third, Diaz came second, and Matt came first. I think we've got gold, silver and bronze for our lads.
Yeah, I call one game of the Copa America because time. It's on most kickoff times are 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And I just happened to finish work one night and stay up. And it was the the Canada game against Argentina. And after watching a couple of snippets of Euro games, it was a refreshing change of seeing two teams just think, sod this, it's a tournament, there's a trophy on the line, you can go through your group and then you go into knockouts, let's just go for it. And it was end-to-end, fast-paced, and it was really, really enjoyable to watch. Obviously, the South American football mentality is different from a lot of European, but, it was refreshing to see.
To Gareth Southgate.
Just a bit. Just a tad, but it was refreshing to see, and, seeing snippets of games and highlights and whatever. But our players, I don't know, were pretty successful tournaments. I think, Alisson in Brazil, you were missing a few players, a bit under strength, and I think they're going through a period of change. The Brazil national team, people who know more will be able to give more of an insight on that. But I don't think they performed well at all. But, I don't think Alisson can be wholeheartedly to blame in that. I think he did save one or two in a penalty shootout, which, is handy to know that he can do that should we ever need him to do it. Well, Diaz, I think, had a very positive tournament. Nunez had a very positive group stage. Those who knock him will come in straight away and say, well, he didn't score in the bigger games against the bigger nations. And yes, that is true. But, I think there was a point when they played Colombia in the semi-final and it was like, well, Diaz hadn't scored. Nunez has not scored against Colombia, but he's okay scoring against Panama. Well, if anyone looked at Colombia's record, I don't think they'd lost a game until they met Argentina in the final, and even then it was an extra time, so technically within 90 minutes they still remained unbeaten in 27 games, I think. So, you know, Diaz is clearly onto something with his national team, and of course Ali Mac had another positive tournament from all reviews I've read. You know, he was instrumental in, you know, the Argentinian midfield, got himself a penalty or two, I think, along the way in shootouts, and, you know, a couple of assists, and his stock and his, you know, presence in the midfield of whether it be Argentina or Liverpool continues to grow, and you just hope that now these lads will get the rest that they probably need over the next few weeks, because, you know, as they've literally just finished the tournament, our pre-seasons began, they're going to be back, and then it's going to be another long old slog of a season. So yeah, they've earned the rest, but I think other issues have probably overshadowed this Copa America more than what they probably would have liked, really. Yeah, definitely.
We'll get onto that in a second. I was just thinking with the Nunez stuff and the criticism, and it's the easy stuff. I mean, it happens with all our players that the closest I can get to is where a lot of this stuff comes from. It's just like teletext criticism. And I used to think of that back in the day when you had to go to try to go the game to see it when it was a 3 o'clock Saturday kickoff. There was hardly any live footy on the telly in this country, and if you didn't go the game and see it, the only chance you got was highlights on Match of the Day or kickoff on Sunday or whatever was on. And you'd be out right round town maybe after a game later on, 7, 8 o'clock, whatever, get talking to someone, maybe a friend of a friend, whatever, and they start telling you how bad Liverpool were and how bad such a player is, he's still not scored. You know, you can imagine the kind of sort of stuff that you get out of people, and then you sort of start talking, did you go then? And oh no, I didn't go. So how do you know? And all they would have done is read the score on teletext, maybe read like a 10-line match report of it, and instantly they can give a judgment on how bad a player is that day, even though they never saw it. And I'm sure that's the kind of stuff that goes on with Darwin. Like you're saying, you know, it's dead easy to say, did he score? No, right, let's slag him off for not scoring. There's no sort of nuance and no sort of detail on it. As for the other thing you're mentioning, it just sounds horrendous. And this is the sort of trouble that basically Darwin's got into, because from his side of the story, or the Uruguay side of the story, he saw his family in danger and went in to protect them, and did what, let's face it, anyone would probably do in that situation. If you see your family in danger, you're not just going to sit and watch, are you? You're going to try and do something about it. How that was allowed to happen is the issue more than anything. And I was surprised, because I sort of heard this story and I'm thinking, what went on? I didn't see all the details. And at first I'm thinking, oh, maybe they were playing in Colombia or something. You know, like in your head you're thinking Copa America, or maybe they're playing in Colombia. Maybe it was, let's face it, after what happened to Luis Diaz's dad and stuff, you know, it's not exactly the most lawful part of the world in ways, is he? So kind of imagine something going on, still terrible. But the fact it was in the States. I mean, I just don't understand how that's been allowed to happen. It just seems naive. And again, it's just this laziness of the football authorities around the world to not get things in place. There should be briefings when there's places that are being used that don't normally maybe deal with soccer fans, or maybe don't deal with fans of a certain nationality or whatever else, certain kind of passion, whatever. They just don't seem to know how to handle things. I mean, what happened in Paris was horrendous. Same kind of thing. No one's, football authorities just like, how much can we get out of this? How much money can we make? Anything else is by the by. And without seeing everything, knowing all the stories, that's what it felt like to me, was like, once again, it's something that could have been avoided. And it's not avoided because the football authorities in this case, it's not UEFA, it's, is it CONMEBOL? Yeah. They've not had their eye on the ball, so to speak. They've let this happen. They've not gone to the local people who were running the games and told them, these are the standards you've got to adhere to. And FIFA should be putting that out there. All the football authorities should be knowing that this is what you've got to do, and these are things that have got to be in place. You know, talking about stewarding and all the rest of it. And it just seems, it's so avoidable. And yet again, we could have been talking about something much worse than what we are talking about, which in the end might even be something we can kind of laugh about, but there's just still this sort of sinister feeling about the way football is and the way fans are treated and the way just human beings who go to games, whatever the level, are treated.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. Ha. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
I don't know if you're beaten aware, but the final itself was marred by controversy of access to the stadium.
Yeah, sorry, that was the second back, yeah.
Yeah, that was with Argentina and Colombia, and I think there was a quote from Mac Allister himself, had to leave the dressing room and help his family in, which is ridiculous. You know, like there was videos of people trying to be held back by fencing, and which then collapsed, and people then falling over fences, and potential crushing, which I should say in this day and age is scandalous how these things are still allowed to be so unorganised and happen. And people were first of all pointing the finger with the Uruguay Colombia one, that it was an issue of the stadium and the security, which was in Carolina, which was maybe they would say what's the security of the stadium isn't up to scratch or whatever. But then the situation with the final was Miami, so a different part of the US, but still a situation unfolded which was not very pleasant at all. And these stadiums are huge NFL stadiums which host games on a weekly basis across the NFL season, which deal with mass crowds. So they should be more than equipped to deal with football fans as well. And the scary thought is that maybe this was a test event for the fact that the World Cup is going to North America in a couple of years, and if this is how it's being handled, there's a hell of a lot of things to be ironed out when you consider how many fans will actually embark on the US, Canada and Mexico. I mean, given I think 70% of the games are being played in the US, and yes, it's a huge country and it'll be spread out across the whole nation, but there's going to be football fans embarking on cities for a short period of time for games. If you just flash it back to the owners, wasn't it? There's a quote of like Dortmund seeing 80,000 Dutch and 40 to 50,000 English embark on the city for 2 days for the semi-final, and you think like, can American cities deal with this? Do they know what they're doing? Because if they don't, they've got 2 years to quickly figure it out, because there is a potential disaster waiting to happen if this is how crowd control is dealt with in US stadiums. And you'd like to hope that things can be quickly addressed and put in place, and whether it's the fact that it was CONMEBOL and not FIFA that were running this tournament, but would you put much faith in FIFA doing anything correctly? I doubt it, but UEFA, how they handled the Champions League final in Paris was a scandal. How the security was set up for the Euro 2020/21 final at Wembley, which was all a bit of a shambles as well. It's a regular thing that's happening now, and it shouldn't be. Lessons should be getting learned. When you referenced at the beginning of the podcast, like Liverpool or Anfield has hosted, concerts for Taylor Swift and Pink to Witcher, people who went to both. And apart from the fact that the toilets in certain parts of the ground are not, fully set up for female usage, because it's predominantly a male audience that goes to Anfield on a weekly basis for football games, but there's female facilities available. That was the only gripe I got back from people I spoke to, because obviously the audience demographic for Taylor Swift and Pink was more in a female population than male. But
I know someone who went to Wembley and they turned some of the gents into ladies, but they weren't exactly like the more urinals than cubicles, so it didn't help a lot. It was an effort though,
Yeah, and they said that, but we understand it's a football ground, it's not, a general concert arena where there's a 50-50 split of facilities. Everything else was fine, and there was a lot more people using the ground because obviously the pitch was open for fans to go onto the pitch for an open air concert. So, we can do it, and we can handle concerts, we can handle football games. There's very, 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 very little controversy or anything that goes wrong at Anfield. So, why aren't authorities contacting people in security and teams that do it on a regular basis and learning from it? Because clearly that's something that needs to happen, especially when you're looking at the biggest World Cup ever. I think it's 48 teams or something like that. It's stupid going to the next World Cup, and America have got a hell of a lot of things to learn in a short space of time if they're going to hopefully get that tournament off without any sort of mishaps.
I know, and it's like, it should just be, I don't know, I know people who do crowd control, they do events, they know how to do things. Like, I saw someone tell me a trick once that you make, those sort of barriers that you see at the side of roads sometimes if they want to stop people going off into the road when there's some marathon on or something. You can make a triangle out of those, stick that in the middle of an area of loads of people, and it starts to separate them out. They'll move, the triangular shape of that will move them outwards, and it sort of stops people congregating one way. And there's just little tips like this. There must be loads of them. I don't know them all. I just heard that one. There must be loads, and then people who've worked in the game for years must know them. Like you say, St James's Park, I think it was last year when I watched Sam Fender, that was the same thing. The toilets were the only thing that was a complaint. There was so many locals there who were all, plenty of people had a drink. They have beer machines outside. But you know what? There was no issues. It was a fun time for everyone. People looked after each other. There was no feeling of danger. I'm sure it'd been the same for the Taylor Swift, for the Pink, all the games we go to. And, you've got to make allowances in some ways. In the States, they're probably used to sort of people who know most of the people going to those games go to every game or go regularly. They know exactly where they park. Like at Anfield, everyone who goes the game, pretty much, they always park in the same place. They always go the same pub before the match or whatever. But you've got a load of unusual people coming who aren't used to it, who are doing things differently. It's a new thing to them. You've got to make allowances for that. And that's why those concerts at Anfield have gone well, because I'm sure Liverpool have made allowances for it. They've got information out. They've told people where to go and how to get there and what they can't do. And, just told them some things that they might assume. Don't assume that, because that's not the case. I think they said, to the Taylor Swift fans, you can't camp out in Stanley Park, which is, it's only a little thing, but if you were thinking of doing that, now you can't. I don't know whether anyone tried. It's just having this information, and it's sort of having this mixture of local knowledge and football knowledge and event knowledge. And I just think UEFA, FIFA, CONMEBOL, all of them, they should just be getting out there and putting people on the ground who know what to do, get them out there well in advance. That should already be getting discussed now for the World Cup. This is how we do it. This is how we do it in football matches. This is how we work with it. These are the pitfalls we've faced in the past. Even admit you screwed up in Paris. Look what we did in Paris. Look what we allowed to happen in Paris. Look what we'd let the authorities do in Paris. So however they want to send that blame around for that, it was shit what happened in Paris, and it could be avoided, and there could be lessons learned from it. So show you've learned from them. Send the information out. And the other one, quickly, I did see a little bit of this, was sort of attempting to blame the fans for being the cause of the trouble. Whether, and this is one of the things that used to worry me about Hillsborough coverage, was because we were always trying to get across that the fans weren't to blame. We never really got the chance to get across that, well, but even if fans were to blame, how does that let the police off the hook for letting that happen? How does, you can't blame fans, even if it was never the fans anyway, it was the police being awful, but you can't hide behind that. Even if there are some fans causing trouble, there should be enough police in place to stop that happening. There should be enough police in place to stop them being able to cause trouble. You know, just the way that you can stop people. I've been to, I'm sure you have. When I went to the final in Kiev, there was no trouble at that, but the cordon around the ground was massive that you had to go through before to show a ticket before you could get to the ground. You do a big cordon around a stadium, then you instantly cut people out, don't you? You instantly slow down the movement in a way that works because people know they need to get there in time. It's just hopeless, and it just feels it's all so easily avoidable. But never mind. Hopefully,
it's just because it's happening all the time now.
Yeah.
It's like every major event, and like I don't know. I think the Olympics is slightly different, but the Olympics begin next week in Paris, and you would question have lessons been learned.
I think the only thing that my hope with the Olympics is hopefully that people don't turn up. It's not like, it's a 3 o'clock kickoff, we've got to get there for the 3 o'clock kickoff. It's more...
Yeah, it's spread across the day and all over the city and stuff. But, like, you know, you'd like to hope that, you know, lessons have been learned. But the fact that we've been doing this podcast a couple of years or so, and we've probably spoke about these events on a regular basis, which is something we don't want to discuss. But the fact that it's happening on a regular basis is a mark of how badly sporting world is handling things, especially football itself.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we're going about is tragedy, Chan, and we say that could have been you, but the sad thing is it could still be you. That's the problem. We shouldn't be able to say it could still be you because the chances of it should be just minimised, but they're not.
Yeah, and you know that delves into that full circle to the England thing, and you know, like it's like it you know, it's one of the things again that like people don't understand how, like, you know, how hurtful that is to members of people close to the Hillsborough disaster, and you know, and also just the fact that, you know, Liverpool fans themselves, we consider ourselves a family of people who, you know, like-minded and, you know, want the same sorts of things in life and come from predominantly mostly the same sorts of backgrounds, and that's not just saying, you know, Liverpool fans are from Liverpool because we are a global team with a global fan base, but you know, we appeal to certain types of people and a demographic of how we the ethos of the club and how we believe, you know, things should be done, and to constantly be told like, oh, you know, you're crying and, you know, you're victims, it's never your fault, all that, and you think, well, you know, actually, you don't want it to happen, but if it should ever happen to your club, you'll be the first of the people to turn around and go, I know what you're on about now. I know what you mean. Yeah, like, you were right. Like, you know, on all this time that you were trying to tell us about things and we were so ignorant to it because, you know, the media spin and the narrative, or we're going along with whatever everyone else says. And if it ever anything tragic should ever happen to another club, people might then turn around and go, actually, yes, you were right, but also at the same time, the Liverpool fans will probably be one of the first people to stand there and say, we'll help you through this because we know how much it hurts. And that is a mark of the people of the city and of you know, the fandom of this club.
Yeah, we don't want to be in a situation where we are having to go and help people, but we will if we have to. It's just frustrating. You know, this whole stuff, like, yeah, we're telling you this, and we're not telling you to try a different milkshake from Mackey's or something. Then you can say, oh yeah, you were right, that was a good. No, this is much bigger than that. To put it bluntly, I suppose moving away from that, let's try and lighten the mood again. It's bad enough when we have to try and do this. We have to sort of talk seriously about stuff, but hopefully that won't be the case. Hopefully the more serious stuff we talk about should be like this. Virgil van Dijk, obviously not in the best of places. He'd not only just gone out of the Euros, he'd gone out to the short-time goalkeepered Gareth Southgate-led England. And he said afterwards he's going to think carefully this summer about what he wants at club level and as an international player. And he said, then we'll go for it again, but first recover from this. And he's talking about how emotional it was after a season like this. All kinds of things have happened. He gets emotional at the end because, you know, it's over. And he probably is kind of hitting him in the face that mad season that for him started with Klopp as his boss and now ends with another Dutchman to be his new boss when he goes in, also coincides with a Euros that I'm sure he would have known that they underperformed in. He'd have been disappointed in how they did in that tournament. And also thinking, contracts coming to an end at Anfield, how many more years have I got left in my legs? There's often, around about the age now that Virgil's at, where a lot of players say, right, I'm calling it a day on the internationals because then I can use those breaks to do some recovery work, just to go easy. I'm reducing the number of games I'm doing in a year, reducing the amount of travelling I've got to do. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what he says. And I think people kind of read into it from what I've been seeing, about when he's saying he's going to think carefully about what he wants at club level. I don't see that as him saying he's not going to sign a new deal. I personally think that's more a case of how long's his new deal going to be. And I can't see the club refusing to offer him one. And we can't, can we? We talked about it then like he's coming to the end of his days, like, he's ready for the retirement home. But as we saw last season, there's still a lot in him. I just think we've got to manage him more. And I do think if he went to Slot and said, look, I know you're a fellow Dutchman like me, but I'm going to call it a day for my country, I don't think Slot would be too worried about that. I think as a Liverpool fan and Slot as a Liverpool manager, we want Virgil to save himself for us, surely.
Yeah, I think this tournaments like this, tend to have casualties, as we've noticed with Mr. Southgate, but that was a casualty that probably should have happened, many years ago from an England point of view. But
he should never have took his head out of that paper bag, but never mind. No,
he should have quit when he had the waistcoat on. After he'd done the photo shoot for Marks and Spencer, he probably should have just took up an advert for, Marks and Spencer window pool or something. But, Van Dijk, is, I suppose, what is known as football terms as the wrong side of 30, which is awful to say as someone who's very much the wrong side of 30 these days, with a birthday fast approaching.
I remember those days.
Yeah, I'm not too far away from the good side of 40 now. But it's a toll mentally and physically, and I think I know a couple of people who got connections to the Netherlands, and Van Dijk has never actually fully been appreciated as a footballer in his homeland and for his nation, and there's often been public sort of comments made about his commitment to the Dutch team, which I don't think can ever be in doubt. Whenever he take the pitch, he's fully committed. And he is without doubt one of the best centre backs that played the game, especially for Liverpool.
Yeah.
And in the Premier League era alone. But he probably does need to manage himself, and given the short time fella caused an horrific injury on him, which took the best part of 18 months to 2 years to get him back to his sterling best. And maybe it's the right thing to do, and maybe there's a conversation to be had where, Liverpool are going to sit down and say, like, look, we want to keep you. Of course we do. You've only got a year left. We'd like to give you, let's say 2 or 3 more on top of that. However, I should say we're probably looking at, the longevity. If we pay your wages week in, week out, and, you're committing yourself to, X amount of internationals, and let's be honest, the qualifying stages for these tournaments drag on, and, the Dutch could probably qualify without Van Dijk actually taking part anyway.
Yeah.
But this will have hurt him, going out to England in the semi-final of a tournament, given how bad England were as well. But we might be in a position where, as a club, the negotiators, I'm sure it's Michael Edwards and a couple of other people, are going to sit down and say, look, like, we think you can play for another 3 or 4 years at the highest level, but you might just need to temper your international commitments on what's that doing for you, and he might himself, like, some of his comments do sound as though he says he considers it, and you do see, I think we've seen the last few days, like, time, and I was still surprised he was playing, but the likes of Xherdan Shaqiri was, called time on his Swiss international career, and I mean, you forget he was still around in his national football.
I was shocked.
He popped up with a screamer.
When I saw the name on some coverage, I thought it must be like a relation or something. But it was him.
But he we let everyone know I'm still capable with this left peg, and he rifled one in the top corner. But you think tournaments like this, when they have a huge toll, and they do undoubtedly end for the mass majority, in a sour way. Maybe it's time to call it a day and walk away. And I wouldn't be surprised if Virgil done that. I wouldn't be surprised if, a couple more high-profile names did it. Maybe not, connected to Liverpool, but it's a hard thing to go that far with your nation if you are passionate and patriotic to then lose out. But I think we would be within our rights to sort of question how much do you want to put into that, because he's had a long old season and a long old summer, and he's going to get, like we said before, a couple of weeks off, and then he'll be back, and then the old Steven Gerrard adage of we go again, which we will, and it's going to be a whole different ball game, as we know. And yeah, there's some serious conversations to be had. Obviously, there's a couple of other lads with expiring contracts coming up as well, in Trent and Salah. But I would imagine, harping back to the press conference that we seen a few weeks ago with Richard Hughes and Arne Slot in that, I think Richard Hughes himself said, he expects a quiet July but a busy August, and hopefully that means, looking forward, we'll have some podcasts to discuss transfers and maybe contract extensions, because he was keeping his cards very close to his chest, which you'd expect him and Liverpool to be doing anyway. But I think what it does do is it sort of it whets the appetite now that we've closed the page on the international summer, and I'm sure, I think we're about 10 days out from an international from a pre-season friendly, we'll start to quickly reassign ourselves with club football, and things might start to ramp up as well off the field in terms of movements, which I think some people are getting the knickers in the twist, but do you expect? It's a new manager, it's a new setup, it's going to take time. Let's just take a bit of a chill and figure it out.
And it's going to take time. That's what, people are forgetting that all the people involved in deciding whether Virgil gets a new deal, apart from the player and his own people, are kind of new to the club, or, they've returned to the club, and there's a lot of assessments to go on. I mean, I'm sure at the training ground, a lot of assessments are being made, and although you can get the feeling that the new manager is he's not even called a manager now, that he's going to have less of a say in some ways in terms of comings and goings and plays. He's not going to be kept out the loop entirely. He's going to have input to that, and they're going to want to know what he thinks about things, and they may present him with information, and he may sort of counter that with his own, but he's going to take time for it all. And I think that's the thing that struck me before when I looked at how late on we're starting the pre-season fixtures. I think this is kind of bonus time. The players are coming back in dribs and drabs. A couple of more weeks now, it really will start going, and I'm sure there's players as well. I mean, Virgil was asked at the start of the Euros what he thought about his new season, and he was basically saying he doesn't want to even think about it now. He's got this tournament to think about, and there'll be loads of players thinking the same way. I mean, they just want to be focused on what's in front of them, which is that tournament, whether it's the Copa America or the Euros, get themselves through that and then see what comes out the other side, see where they are the other side. And I mean, joking about, as we was before, about players that jump out in a tournament, a few of them might have been thinking, well, if I put a good show on in Germany or wherever, I might get a few more quid on any new contracts I get offered or any deals that other clubs want to make for me. So I think it's just a case of hanging fire, not panicking. But I know people will. We definitely need signings this summer, but the other thing is, we can all talk about what we need, but we're basing that on how we played under Klopp. We don't know for sure how we're going to play under the new manager, and I'm sure he's got some ideas, and he's also seen some of those youngsters that we saw last year. You'll be able to see them and see just how far are they from being, people we can rely on. And if the club if there was any chance that, I can imagine the conspiracy theories will have come up with this, but if Liverpool were holding back on transfers because FSG were looking to buy the French club Bordeaux, well, that's not happening now. It's been announced this morning that FSG have pulled out. So if there was sort of like all the football budget was going towards buying another club, FSG have pulled out. The story is, it seems to be related to them significant costs that they're going to need to spend on the stadium in future years and the general economic context of French football. So I'm glad in a way. I mean, I get why companies like FSG want to buy more clubs, but I'm not keen on companies owning more than one club. Everton, yeah, they're probably not keen on people who own more than one club.
They would just be keen on someone to own them, and by the sounds of it. But I'm a bit sort of on the fence with the multi-club ownership model. I think, you know, it's got its benefits, but it's also got its downfalls.
Yeah,
but I'm probably more towards the side of, sadly, the way the game is going. It might well be the way forward, and I'm not of the opinion of harvesting players like Chelsea do, and you know, having an obscene amount of players and ship them off here, there, and everywhere, and sign a player, and he doesn't even make an appearance for you because you've found him off some other club. But I do think there's merit in potentially having a setup, a link with other clubs, and whether that's through the ownership or whether it's through like a direct sort, not the term feeder club, but having a direct link with a couple of clubs.
Yeah, I agree on that one.
Where you can sort of, you know, you can facilitate each other. Where, you know, we've undoubtedly got a very good academy, and we can't give all these young players first team opportunities. But if we had a club, for example, Bordeaux, or for example, a club in the Eredivisie or the Belgian league, where, you know, we could allow a couple of our youngsters to go on a yearly basis, and we could upgrade their training facilities so they have better stuff like that as well. You know, that would help. Of course, and we could give them the possibility to say, here's a couple of our youngsters who we are 50-50 on whether they're going to make the grade or us, or let's see how they do for you, and they might be good enough to go. Tell you what, that's the level, and you know, you maybe see that player move there, or you see a player move on, you know, because that might be the level, or you then bring them back and you integrate them into your own team. Vice versa, you know, they might have a youngster and you think, tell you what, this lad is a cut above, and, you know, maybe it's an option of go, well, let us have, you know, sort of first refusal, or let us take a closer look, or, you know, a couple of players who we may bring in, you know, from overseas, and you think not quite ready for the English hustle and bustle just yet at the age of 17, 18, 19, but let's just see, you know, acclimatise them to European football if you bring them from South America or the Far East or Africa, and allow them, you know, 12 months to settle into a European sort of way of playing. As we said earlier on, the South American to the European football is completely different, but, you know, it can work in both ways, and maybe the multi-club ownership model is a way of doing it, but also, you know, having just genuine connections and links with other clubs wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, because it seems to be the trend quite a lot of clubs are going behind, and maybe not a case of if you can't beat them, join them, but, you know, if you can't beat them, find a cleverer way to beat them.
Yeah,
in essence.
Yeah, I agree. And also maybe while you're at it, say, right, let's have some standards, and now this is done, let's not have anything underhand going on. Let's make sure everything's sort of out in the open, whatever you're doing, and put some sort of you know, sort of lines that you shouldn't cross and things like that. And I think my issue with clubs owning other clubs is the kind of clubs that do it to bring to mind, who, you know, maybe are doing it to get around financial fair play and stuff like that, and that's the kind of thing that needs to be looked out for and stamped down on, because if they're doing it genuinely to make another club better and, you know, develop better footballers and all the rest of it, fair enough, but it's just watching them, you know, it's whether you trust them, and that's the problem. I don't trust a lot of other clubs. Certain ones, definitely. Some of them with hundreds of charges waiting to be dealt with. Going to be another season full of that as well, isn't it? But we'll see. We didn't even mention the referees. I'm not going to do, because we'll be here all day. But I do know the English ones didn't seem to do too well in the Euros. Just one other thing as well, I thought, good way to finish off really. Paddy the Baddie Pimlet, local Liverpool fan, and Molly Meatball McCann, who's a blue. But they're both UFC MMA fighters. both from Liverpool, of course, and they've got a new BBC series which is worth a look. I've watched one episode. Seems a good laugh, and if you want to know, you get a bit of an insight into Liverpool. He's they're both quite witty in their own way, and there's loads of laughs and stuff in it. But the main reason for mentioning it was see if you can dig out Paddy the Baddy's celebration of England going out at the final the other day.
Yeah. Let's just say he rattled the cages of a hell of a lot of people. But given his profession, I'd imagine too many would say it back to his face. Is probably the nicest way of putting it.
And you know what, though? He's like, he wouldn't need to use his profession to get back at him, because he'd just still laugh in the faces, and that's what I love about it.
Of course, yeah. He's a character in all essence of the word. But yeah, it's a good insight in terms of some people who don't like Scousers will say it's very cringe, and that's probably sums up why they don't like us. But at the same time, if you can say things with a pinch of salt and see the type of people that come from the city, and the humour that's involved, and the mentality and the laid back nature, and not sort of in a bad way, but those are sort of the happy-go-lucky type of people that we are, and things aren't always deadly serious. It's a good bit of entertainment. It's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, and if you don't understand what sarcasm is, get learning. That's all I'll say. Anyway, we'll leave it there for now. We'll definitely be back soon. We'll definitely have something to talk about, because this is Liverpool, of course, and hopefully it's all good stuff. And we're sort of explaining how this new expensive £80 million signing is going to fit into our side, or whatever. If that's still classed as expensive these days, who knows? But for us, for now, that is it. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Jay, and we will see you soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.